welcome to a brand new episode of The Witching Hour. We're just going to get right to it. You know me, I'm Perri. You know Haleigh, but we have a very special guest in studio right now. We have Brightburn director David Yarovesky.
Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So right off the bat, you guys should know that we have seen Brightburn. We have given 2 thumbs up to Brightburn.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
really,
nice to hear.
a
Thank you
huge
very much.
congratulations to you.
Thank you.
So we kind of want to start with the beginning
Yes.
right now and get a little, because you have an interesting background and an interesting resume that isn't necessarily, one feature film, then move on to the next. You have some shorts and you have some different content on your resume. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess day one, how'd you get into filmmaking, period?
I'll tell you a story that I don't often tell because, people won't find it as cool as I found it. And it didn't have, it doesn't kind of like resonate. It doesn't resonate with a lot of audiences. A lot of audiences, I could just say, hey, I made music videos and then I started making movies and everyone will be like, cool. But
You're teeing up the story in a fascinating way to me right now. I
think
can't
you
wait
guys
to
are
hear
gonna
what it
dig
is now.
I think you guys are going to dig it. But for like a more horror audience, I think they'd be a little excited about this portion of the story, I guess. So when I was really young, I was I thought I wanted to do like makeup and special effects. I mean, really young, right? Like I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10, what like in that age. And so I had my dad's camera and I'd like shoot all these things and I'd like set up the camera and plan all these shots and then do like, my best attempt at 10 at like a special effect. And my dad makes teeth. He owns a dental laboratory and he makes teeth for...
Can't handle it. I have like a severe fear of the dentist.
Oh, really?
And I have to go to the dentist this week and I'm so upset.
Oh, I'm sure he won't rip any of your teeth out. Or drill anything.
No drills.
Oh, no. I hear the word drill and automatically I start to cringe.
Oh.
But keep going.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So he makes teeth. And for 99% of his work, that means he makes teeth for dentists, and it's a pretty normal non-entertainment job. But he got contacted by Rick Baker once to work on something. I don't know what it was. I don't think it ever actually happened. But they talked about doing something, like he needed some kind of teeth things that were kind of beyond his capacity. And so my dad was like, oh, my son is a huge fan of yours. Can he come into the shop? And I think I was 14 or 15 at the time, maybe younger, maybe 13. And he said, sure. So I came in, I got like a total tour of Rick Baker Studios in 1992 or 3 or so, like way early on. I mean, I guess it's not early on in his career, but just a long time ago, when there was a lot of really cool stuff, the American Werewolf in London stuff here and, really cool stuff. And I met him, I talked to him, I begged him to let me like sweep up around the shop or something, because I had read that like that's how he started. He started working for Dick Smith and like swept up around the shop. And so I begged him to let me do that. And he was like, you are too young and there are laws and that I just cannot have you in a place where there's toxic chemicals and but he was like, good luck. And then he said, if you're serious about doing makeup special effects, you should go to Dick Smith's school for special effects. And I was like, what is Dick Smith's school for special effects? I will definitely do that. So they gave me a phone number. He gave me a phone number and I was like, wow, thanks. And I left and I was so intimidated to call Dick Smith's makeup school. I don't know, it just seemed scary. It seemed like me like talking to real people who do things. So I was scared, and so I waited a couple weeks until I grew the nerve to call, and then I and then I waited for a Sunday, and it was like a Sunday morning, and I called so that I would definitely get an answering machine and just leave a message, and I called. And a woman immediately answered and was like, hello? And I said, I'm calling for Dick Smith's makeup school. Maybe I have the wrong number. And she's like, oh, hang on, Dick. And he picks up the phone. It was clearly like his home line. And he gets on the phone and he talked to me for maybe 45 minutes. And if you think about like the idea that some guy picks up the phone, Dick Smith, makeup artist, legend, picks up the phone and talks to a 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid for 45 minutes about what his dream is, And throughout the conversation, he started asking me why I want to do it. And I told him I really like setting up the shots and I plan and make these boards, and then I shoot him and stuff. And he's like, man, you're not a makeup artist. You're a director. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I guess. He's like, well, you like telling the story and you're like putting all the pieces together. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, you were not a makeup artist. You know, if you called me and told me you like sculpting all day, you're a makeup artist. Yeah, but he's like, that's not what you said. You're a director. Go be a director. And so I guess I did.
How do you ignore advice from Dick Smith? Really?
So that was kind of like a game-changing moment for me in my life, and it was surreal and it was crazy, and over the course of I'm 39 years old now, so the journey to get from a 10-year-old who wants to make movies, scary movies, to now, there's all these little stories along the way that are cool, but that one, to me, at least, it really stands out to me, but only the right audiences will love it as much as I do. You know what I mean? Like if I don't know, if a more broad publication came and talked to me.
You're talking to the right crowd.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I could say Dick Smith and not explain who he is or why it's important to me that he told me to go be a director, and so yeah. Anyways, that was kind of my start, and then yeah. I mean, then I went on and made stuff, and I started raising money to make stuff really young, and I mean, I don't know. I could talk about this for a lot. The journey to this seat right here. That's an hour-long podcast alone.
Did you take the film school track, or did you go straight into making things and circumvent it?
Okay, you want the other story?
Yeah.
You want the other story. I see where this is going.
The film school debate is a fascinating one to me, because I think if someone jumps in, it can work for them, but also it's totally possible to build a career without that too. So it's like you can't really necessarily say, this is what you should do.
Well, that's 100% true. And there are times like I did not go to film school, okay? And I'll tell you one more kind of really fun horror story moment that I had that kind of...
You already set a pretty high bar for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm sure you want to tell them
I
story.
might top it for you. But I didn't go to film school. And there were times over the journey where I was not where I wanted to be in my life, where I looked back and thought, would it have been easier for me if I went to film school? And the answer is yes, probably. Like, it probably would have been an easier journey. But at the same time, I don't think I would have been as well equipped to take on the projects. When I was 24, I was really close to making a movie, and I was really bummed that it didn't happen. And then when I was 34, I made my first movie, The Hive, and at that time when I finished it, I said, thank God the movie when I was 24 didn't happen, because I was just not at all ready or prepared for what making a movie for $500,000 would feel like or be like, or just a level of I don't know, the complications that come with it, But anyways, I'll tell you this story that I know you guys will like. And I'll tell it quickly because I feel like I'm dominating the.
Hey, this is the point of this episode.
When I was debating whether or not I would stay in school, I was in like a junior college. I was never good in school, right? I was just like barely didn't fail out of high school, and then the same thing with college. I was not doing well, and I was debating whether or not I would stay or I would go on to work on other things. And I started raising money to make this stupid little cartoon. And like the trauma offices gave me their offices to like throw a fundraiser at. And that night I pulled in early. I like to show up early and like be prepared for things. So I showed up early. I showed up before anyone was there. And as I pulled in, Wes Craven pulled into the parking spot next to me.
You're talking to the right person right now.
And I was like, oh my God. And he got out of the car and I was like, I got to chase him down. So I like chased after him and I was like, I guess he was doing a retrospective of his work at the Egyptian Theater, which was next to where the trauma offices were. And I chased him down and I said, oh my God, you're my hero. I saw Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 4, and it scared Jesus out of me, and like I probably want to make movies now because of you, and blah blah blah. And he's like, cool, great, cool kid. And he like, nice to meet you. And he walked away, and I went to the where we were going to throw the party. And I sat on the step because I was locked out, just like kind of waiting for everyone to get there. And like 10 minutes go by, and Wes Craven comes walking up, sits down next to me, and he's like, let's have a beer. And he sat and had a beer with me and just talked about directing and what it's like to make stuff. And I was like, man, Last House on the Left, like, how, you know, and he was talking to me about all that stuff. And he talked a little bit about like what it's like to be a director, what it means to be a director and all that. And when he got up and left, he shook my hand, and there was $300 in his hand, which he donated to the movie see, that was my reaction. And so
my heart is about to explode.
So, yeah, mine was too. I was utterly speechless. And it was a moment for me. And then I kind of came out of my body a little bit, and I said, why, like the next day I was in school, and they were teaching us how to turn on a video camera, and I was like, this is not where I am, you know, like you guys are learning stuff that I was doing 10, 15 years ago, like, and so that was really the moment where I stepped away from school and started like just focusing on, I'm just gonna make stuff, and if people stop giving me money to make stuff, I'll go back to college. I'll figure out something, but for now, I'll just start making stuff.
That story wins.
Did it beat the next?
Well, everybody knows Scream is my favorite horror movie ever made, and it's my second favorite movie of all time. And Wes Craven, I am so thankful that I had the opportunity to cross paths with him. I think he is one of the kindest human beings we had in this industry. So he has a very special place in my heart. But
you have said some incredible guardian angels on your journey. That's amazing.
I've been both a mixture of incredibly fortunate and also. You know what? It's a combination of 3 things. It's number 1, I've been lucky. Luck is a factor, right? The fact that I pulled in next to Wes Craven is lucky, right? Number 2, I was kind of fearless. Like in a moment where I could just panic and not say anything, I ran towards him and I said, "I'm a huge fan. Come talk to me about directing." And number 3, I was always making stuff. So I was always trying to create opportunities for myself. So, you know, he could come next door and see that I had, you know, at a very young age set up this, you know, fundraising thing where, you know, there was concept art all over the wall. I mean, you could just see that I was taking myself very seriously at a very young age and had high expectations of myself. So it was really those 3 things that worked together to help me have those opportunities and those stories. Yeah.
Jumping off of those 2 encounters, then obviously the next step is working with James, because that's one of my favorite things to see in this industry. Someone who has great opportunities for themselves, but also somebody who is a producer and gives opportunities to other people too. And I think he's doing that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but how did you meet him, and what has it been like with him kind of, I guess, ushering you into this opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And the truth is that James and I have been friends for a long time. We met maybe 10, 12 years ago, something like that, quite a while ago. And I mean, I guess that really is another situation where I met someone at a party and it was James, and I was like, wow, I'm a really big fan of Dawn of the Dead. I'm a really big fan of Slither, and you're cool. You're a cool person. You're nice. You're caring. You're a cool person. And so I liked him, and we had mutual friends, and we got along. And so for a long time, we just hang out and talk about movies and movies we wish we could make one day, and things that, he said to me once, and this is totally true, because I had so much trouble, like, I could sit and talk to a guy like James or something, a guy who kind of looks like me, or I feel like I can look at and talk about music or, horror movies or something that I know that the 2 of us like. But I'd go into an office and I'd see, a guy in a suit or something, an agent or a movie producer, and I'd be a little intimidated because those guys didn't look like my friends growing up and stuff. And he said to me once that there's a ton of really great ways to make money, and working in this industry is definitely not one of them. And if people are working in this industry, it's because they love movies, and you will find that common thread. And if you can't find that common thread, then fuck that person. You know what I mean? Then if you can't connect on that level, then it's probably for a good reason. If they're not here because they love movies, then I don't know why they're here. So I've always held on to that, and I found it true with James. We can immediately connect on a total love for movies, and I think that most people who love movies, who love talking about movies, they can just sit around and talk about movies, and so we did that for a long time. Anyways, I'm going off on tangents here.
Well, you also wound
really
up
good tangents.
and you wound up describing this collider bubble that we live in, where it's just like a big office full of people who love talking about movies day and night.
Yeah, most people out here like if people were to come to Los Angeles and just walk into offices like this, it would feel very not glamorous for them, because it really is, right? It's really just a bunch of movie nerds who are talking about what happened on Game of Thrones last night. Like that is kind of the sum of it, And it's because we're all so obsessed with cinema and all of these things that we've bet our lives and given up our lives to come take a crack at being here and being a part of all of it. So anyway, so James, he books this movie called Guardians of the Galaxy, and suddenly is
that one?
propelled into this level that he's never seen, and of just massive success, which is awesome. But it also gave him opportunities to make other movies or help out people like me, and he really liked my first film, The Hive, which I made while he was making Guardians, and not only that, but I came through for him on other projects. Like I created like a VR escape room for Belco, and I made a music video for Guardians too, and
which is delightful.
Thank
is.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so in just I'm kind of an overachiever, and I really like to knock things out of the park. So I think he had confidence in me from that.
I have so many questions specifically about jumping into Brightburn now, because
sure.
we mentioned this, or at least I did, a little before we started recording. This is a challenging film.
Yes.
I mean, you have this idea of making, somewhat of a superhero movie, which is obviously super hot right now, and you think that gives you a very good shot of wide appeal. And then you take this turn with it, which is, I guess I would describe it as extremely challenging. So why go the riskier route with a story like this?
Well, I mean, I see what you mean, that it's riskier, but at the same time, the worst thing a movie can be, at least in my opinion, is just like vanilla. It's like, what is this? It's nothing. And so yeah, I mean, we were certainly bold, and when we go dark, we go dark. You're both nodding.
Extreme nods around the office.
Don't hurt yourself nodding so hard. But I felt like, I knew the trailer that we were going to present, right? That was at the very dawn of this movie. There was a trailer in my mind that I, had talked to the writers about, talked to James about, and we'd all kind of like sunk up around that trailer. And knowing what that would be, and knowing the promise I was going to make to the audience, I knew I had to like deliver on that promise. I knew we were going to be R-rated. I knew we were going to, be taking, superhero tropes and turning them dark. And so I felt a responsibility to deliver on that.
As someone who's not very evil, sinister laugh, I like it. As someone who's not easily shocked, or gore doesn't tend to have much of an effect on me, there are a couple things in this that definitely got like a cringe and a cheek hold.
You're
was
welcome.
there? Yeah, thank you. Was there pushback on that? I mean, how fine-tuned did you have to make the editing to get an R on some of those scenes?
The version you saw was completely unchanged from the way I shot him. Wow. So like I was as shocked as you were. I was totally expecting to get pushback from MPAA because I've heard things like that. I was expecting to get pushback from the studio, but I think that part of it was James really carved out a kind of protection to me that I typically wouldn't have, and part of it was that we were an independent film essentially that Sony acquired, and so I look back and I don't know totally how we navigated it, but I think that the real thing is that people thought it was cool.
Yeah.
That really is what it is. Is that especially like for a while violence seemed to be like, I don't want to see any violence in anything. But then, Game of Thrones came around and it has such broad appeal and it killed people in such brutal ways, people you really cared about in such like gnarly ways, that it was kind of like, why is there this stigma? Like there is like there's certainly like violence in this movie, but I also think that like it's also, you're coming to a horror movie and you're going to see, a superhero turn their powers on people. And so you kind of need to see what that looks like and what that feels like in the most visceral and realistic way possible. So it's like no one's getting tortured. They're losing. They lose the fight.
He strikes harder than your average serial killer.
That's for sure. Jumping off that a little bit, just because I have a feeling that this question might come up, especially for someone who is, let's say, a diehard Superman fan. When they walk away from this, I have a feeling, a thought on some folks' brains might be like, why do we need this movie? I hate asking that because I'm like, well, what's the purpose of your movie? What do you want people to take from it? But why do we need, especially in the climate now where we have Marvel dominating, DC rising again, why do we need this take on this origin story?
Sure. Well, look, I think those are all they're good family films. And I'll go see them and I'll sit in an audience and there'll be 10-year-olds who are cheering for it, and there's a broad appeal to that, and it's a lot of fun. But I wanted to make something that there's a section of the audience that is sitting there and watching the Avengers that are like, what would happen if Iron Man just went nuts and started punching people in the head with his iron suit, like...
Now I'm kind of picturing you making, like, a shared darker universe, and you tackle all of the heroes.
I mean, they're, like, so much of Avengers and the joy of Avengers is a kind of wish fulfillment of all of us, like, imagining what it would be like to have all these superheroes fighting together
Absolutely.
And so I think that the same thing is true about this movie I've created, which is that part of the joy of the movie is it's some kind of fun wish fulfillment of like, what if they didn't also, what if a superhero learned about his powers but didn't also learn this incredibly important moral lesson that always kept him like altruistic and good and would never hurt anyone with it, like what if? So it's just a kind of fun thing. I mean, you're right. Like we live in a time where superheroes have dominated every aspect of pop culture. I feel like I can see the like CNN, 2010s, docuseries about this time and the episode on superheroes and how it swallowed everything. And so I'm naturally like a counterculture kind of guy. Like I kind of like to, fuck with whatever is like popular, and so I don't know. It just kind of made sense, and it seemed like I don't know. The only compass I have is like I start to think of ideas, and it's like, would I see that? Would 16-year-old me see that? Would I would think it was cool. So that's kind of what got me excited about it.
As you describe it, it also feels like now is the perfect time for something like this because you almost get the added benefit of all of us being steeped in it and kind of holding your film up to that version of it that we're so used to, and it makes it even more tense and stressful, because I feel like I'm naturally inclined to look at your main character and say, well, why can't you do it like this, just like they? And it's frustrating, and it adds to the suspense of it all.
Well, and audiences have a shorthand for how these are supposed to work now, so you can play off those expectations really easily because everybody speaks superhero fluently.
Yeah, there's a couple moments in the movie where I really definitely tried to lean into that, there's a couple moments really where he's kind of figuring out that he has powers, and like he's having that moment that, you know, Peter Parker would have or something, where he's really like, oh, I have to go stop some burglaries, but, you know, instead, you know, Brandon goes and raises some hell, and like, but those scenes are really interesting because, and they were fun for me to make because they kind of feel like that. Like, you feel the momentum of, oh, I'm putting all the pieces together and I'm about to go be the thing I'm going to become for the first time. But it like feels wrong because you know he's going to go do really bad things. And it's this really fun, weird thing that happens. I don't know. I'm glad you guys liked it. I could also see people being disturbed by it, but it's a horror movie, you know? Like,
that's the point.
That's the
Well,
point.
I think you're going to engender some hot takes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah, I'm sure. 100%. Like, you know, I remember going to see Unbreakable, and Unbreakable is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. And I walked out of the theater thinking I just saw a masterpiece, and my friends were like, "That sucked." Oh. And it's, you know, we argued like crazy over it. And, you know, I think time has proven that, like, it's a really great movie. And I'm not saying that will necessarily happen in my movie. I'm definitely not comparing it to Unbreakable. They're very different movies and all that. But I do think that there is something similar in that I think people will come out of it with strong opinions.
Yes, I agree.
Can you talk a little bit about Brandon's suit design? Because that is just like a pitch perfect way to even just like isolate it to marketing, where it kind of like catches your eye and you never forget it. Did that go through many iterations before you settled on that?
Oh yeah. My wife, who designed the costume for this, she did all the costumes. Oh, cool. But she, I've worked with her on, I don't know, I've worked with her for 10 years or something. I met her on a music video a long time ago, and we just worked together on everything since then. And she did a really incredible job. And I went to her and I said, okay, this is going to be a small ask, but like, so I want you to create like the definitive superhero horror, you know, costume that can, you know, sit on a shelf of toys next to Freddy Krueger and Leatherface and Michael Myers and, you know, all these icons, and be distinct and be its own thing, and also be scary, and also be something that can be a Halloween costume, and also, you know, and it was just like the needle she had to thread, and she did really an incredible job. Like she nailed it. That costume, it's just the fan art and stuff that it's inspired is pretty cool.
Yeah, you guys did the poster competition, right? I love seeing movies do that.
Yeah, you know, but the truth of the funny thing about it was it wasn't from us. It was that we posted the trailer and suddenly all this fan art started popping up. And so we were like, what are we going to do with all this fan art? We have to do something. People are like reacting to this movie in a way that, you know, I guess doesn't really happen. So let's create an opportunity. And so I think Sony started putting out this poster contest, and like, yeah, we got like, I think over 1,000 submissions. I mean, we got so many, and so many that are so good. You know, I don't know how they picked a couple winners, because there was a lot of really good ones.
It's a solid assortment there. I was looking at it earlier.
Yeah, but yeah. So, anyways, Autumn did a really incredible job. I mean, you know, we didn't do it the traditional way because, you know, James has had the experience before where you get these amazing concept artists and they draw something on paper and you go, wow, that looks incredible, and then when it's fabricated and real, it falls flat. It's nothing, because, you know, the translation of how things work in reality to in art, it doesn't always translate. It's not one-to-one. So using that wisdom, we just kind of employed Autumn to just start making masks. and you know, I found a couple references of like vintage photos of children wearing like old like superhero costumes that it looks like their parents made for them, like for $5 or something, you know, that are super creepy. And then there was this like weird vintage bathing suit that like it was like some weird shit that they thought someone would ever wear, but no way, no one was ever gonna wear it. It was like to protect you from the sun, and it was like this weird mask, and it kind of had like this cape thing. And
I need one of these.
It's like floral too. It's a nightmare. And so it was so you know, I sent those pictures to Autumn, and she just started like. I mean, there's a photo that she has, which is amazing. I keep telling her she's got to post it. It's like her office is about this size, and it's her, and there's a wall that big, and on every inch of the wall is a different iteration of the mask. It's just covered with different masks, and all the different ways that she did it with different materials and different eye holes and different mouths, and I mean it's pretty amazing.
Yes, please convince her to post it.
Yeah, really. I kind of want to see that too.
I'm sure she will.
With all of the crazy set pieces you have in this movie, I'm curious, was there any time on set where you were busy doing something like that and you thought to yourself in the moment on set, this is never going to work, this is crazy, and then you put it together in the editing room and it works beautifully?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. I mean, I think there's constantly moments here and there where you're like, is that a thing? Is that not a thing? I mean, you know, I try to shoot in a way, because I've always, until now, I've had like no budgets. I mean, this movie wasn't a big budget movie, but before this movie, my budgets were much smaller, you know? And so I've always sort of filmed in a strategic way where I build in like opportunities to abort, you know, certain moments or certain gags that didn't pay off because I've been stuck in situations where something looks terrible and I have no way out of it. So I've always shot with like redundancy, basically, like okay, so we're like over covering and stuff because it just kind of came up in an indie way, but yeah, I certainly had a couple moments where I was concerned with, you know, how things looked and how things worked and you know, but you know, something you learn like as a director as you start to mature. I say that as I've only made 2 movies, but I've done a lot of music videos and this feels like part of the process of maturing is when you start shooting. You get to a scene, a take that feels really good, you know, and everyone gets excited on set, and the producers get excited, and your first instinct is to like do it again and again and again because it keeps feeling good, and you're like, all right, let's do another take of that, yeah, and everyone's happy, and then you get to a scene that's not working, it doesn't feel as good, and your instinct is to like, okay, we got it, let's move on, let's get back to feeling good, and the truth is that you should really do the opposite, like once something feels good, you're done. Move on. You got it. You know, and when something sucks or isn't feeling right, stay there until it does. And that's, I think, the single hardest thing for early directors to do is when something isn't working, to just say out loud, it isn't working, we got to figure it out. Because it bums everyone out. Everyone starts to panic. Everyone gets concerned, you know? But you have to just have the confidence to know that this is part of the process. Not everything is going to work out the gate. You got to figure it out. It's okay. Like, you know, you know, as a, I mean, just tell me to shut up at some point. But but you know, as a director, that moment to moment, people are going to think like you're stupid or you made a mistake or that was dumb, that didn't work, you know? But you know, because sometimes you shoot things and you're like, okay, that looks dumb as hell right now, but I know it's a piece I need for the edit that will look good later, or once the visual effect is in there, it'll look good, and once there's sound. And so you have to like let go of, in the moment, people thinking this is stupid or this doesn't look right or whatever, because in the end, basically the movie works and everyone thinks you're a genius, or it doesn't, and everyone thinks you're an idiot, and that's just basically what being a director, the life of being a director is, you know?
Well, I want to ask the question, though.
The question.
Yes.
The question.
Okay. Is it?
It's the one we
go.
always ask.
Well, that's turned into two things.
Has it?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll ask one.
Okay.
This is very exciting.
We like to ask our guests, and I'm particularly excited for your answer since you are very invested in horror, and clearly, as your history has shown. What is sort of just what you've been seeing, whether it's a book, video game, movie, TV show in the genre recently that's really had you excited?
Ooh, good question. I mean, I think that Bioshock is just like the greatest narrative experience ever. I think that it was like a masterpiece. I think of it as like the Citizen Kane of video games. Like it's the first time I really felt like there was a director's vision, that it wasn't led by coding. It was led by like an artist who wanted to tell this story. And I'm sure it's happened before, but something about that just, it all kind of came together thematically. That's a good question. You know, there's a lot of cool stuff. Look, my buddy's working on Annabelle Comes Home right now, and I'm incredibly excited to see that movie. Yeah. I still haven't seen it, and I know what he's capable of, and I know that movie's going to be amazing. I really like the stuff that James Wan's been kind of creating over there, and that movie really opened the door for our movie. You know, there was a whole era in which you couldn't make an R-rated horror movie because no one believed there was an audience for it. And,
right.
And those Conjuring movies, have opened
now
that
look
up.
at them.
The
box office is absolutely nuts. From Conjuring to the first It movie to The Nun.
Yeah.
I mean, everything
R-rated.
is just
They're all
breaking
R-rated.
records.
Yeah, breaking records with R ratings. And so that's how a movie like ours can exist. Is you go, hey man, those movies are rated R. If you want to be a horror movie that makes a ton of money, I guess we got to be rated R.
Thank you, James Gunn.
Thank you, James Gunn, and James
Wan.
Wan. Yeah.
So many Jameses.
Yeah. So it's funny how all that works, Yeah. That's sort of the interesting thing about the industry, is they shot on anamorphic lenses. They shot 240, and so I can always say, hey, The Conjuring did it, and look at all the money they made. We got to follow the model of The Conjuring, so we should definitely shoot on anamorphic lenses because they're more complicated, but they're so much prettier, and stuff like that. So that stuff's really cool, and yeah.
Nice.
The other pressing question that we semi-ask our guests and semi don't: do you have any pets?
Oh
yes. Yes, I do. Oh, by the way, also, I've another friend of mine. I don't know if you know Jeremy Slater, but he had a show, The Exorcist, which was really cool, which I loved.
Did quite enjoy that show.
And he's always working on really cool things. I won't say anything he's working on because I don't know what is allowed to, but he's a person in horror to watch.
All right.
He's awesome. And then what was the question that you asked?
That's the burning question. Do you have any pets?
Oh yeah, I have. I do. I have two dogs. I really live with 3 dogs, but two of them are mine. Well, one of them is really mine. One of them is my wife's, and so they're both kind of mine. But there is certainly that feeling that like, this guy right here is mine. That one's yours.
The loyalties are clear.
Yeah, the loyalties are very clear.
What are their names?
My dog is named Nietzsche, and of course, and her dog is Heisey, and and then the other dog lives at our house named Kaboom.
Kaboom!
I feel like we can thank Tony Todd for that question.
Yeah.
I never
Is
realized
that a Tony Todd?
Tony Todd
original.
Candyman
Yeah, I know he is, yeah.
is a huge cat lover.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, and it was one of the most pleasant surprises ever.
Yes.
That is nice. Yeah. I love my dog. a lot. And literally the hardest thing about making the movie was being away from him for 4 months. Because I'd never been away from him for that long.
That's way too long. I just did 2 weeks away from my animals, and was like, it's tough.
Yeah. And he's not young, so that makes it harder and scarier. And I wanted to bring him, but if it was a bigger budget movie with more support and more, but we were still, it was still a down and dirty. I lived in a hotel room for 4 months, so it just wasn't the right place.
Did you get to the point where you're just stopping people on the street, like, can I please pet your dog? Because I do that all the time when I'm away.
Every time someone would get in the elevator with their dog or something, because I guess it was a pet-friendly hotel or something, and someone would come in. Because it was me, my wife, and Mike D, the cinematographer. We all left dogs behind that we love, and and we all kind of Autumn and I were in a room, but then Mike was in the room next door to us, so we'd go up the elevator together at the end of the day. If there was a dog in there, we would all just be like, "Oh my god!" and pick it up and attack it. Good dog. Yeah, just pet it.
It might be your lucky day when we walk out of this room, because there might be a puppy in the office today.
Nice.
We do have to wrap this up, and the reason that this is a shorter episode of The Witching Hour, which isn't really an hour, is because we are going to do a separate video with you all about the end of Brightburn. Don't worry, this episode is coming out now, and obviously it was spoiler-free, but the next time you come back from having seen Brightburn, you are going to get a spoiler-heavy discussion from the three of us, so don't forget to look out for that. But for now, Haleigh, where can everyone find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Haleigh Fouch and on Instagram at Haystack McGroovy.
And I'm at P. Nemiroff on Twitter and Instagram. Do you have social medias or other things you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I only do Instagram, but I'm just David Yarovesky, my name. Good luck spelling it on Instagram. And that's it.
So go check that out, guys. And of course, check out Brightburn in theaters May 24th. Seriously, go give that movie a watch and then come back and message us, hit the comment section, and tell us what you guys think. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this episode. You have officially survived The Witching Hour.